Hi, I'm Coach MK, founder of the Fitness Protection Program. I'm a run coach, not a life coach. We're never really talking about the running. Running is the tool. It's the conduit we use to examine the world we live in, as well as its impact on our own lives and the lives of the people around us. How we react to certain people and to certain stories tells us a lot about how we view ourselves. I'm committed to the thoughtful, intentional exploration of the importance of running so that no one discounts their own badassery, ever. Final note, this podcast is geared towards every runner who won't lose their home, livelihood, or health insurance if they show up to the corral with a hangover. Not that I'm encouraging you to do that, just saying. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the Fitness Protection Podcast. Hi, this is Coach MK, founder of the Fitness Protection Program, and this is our weekly Ask Away segment with me and with Coach Sarah, who is the head coach of all of our heart rate training programs. We take questions from the clients in our three programs. We have Runner Interrupted, a program for runners currently not running. We have questions from people in Rebuild, which is a program designed to bring people back into, to help rebuild the fitness or the running habit as they come back from a period of 6 months or longer of not running. Then we have Maintain, which is designed for people who have a modicum of fitness they'd like to maintain. Doesn't really matter what that base is. It's sort of, I have a habit, I would like to keep it in between training cycles. That is what we're here for. Hi, Marie. Yay. So before we get into it, Sarah has been on vacation all week long, and Roz has been holding it together since 5 a.m. California time when she got on a plane. I saw that smiling picture on Instagram and was like, ooh, that does not look good for our live stream tonight. Because it doesn't work that way. Gosh. I don't know if y'all know this, but right now Uranus is in retrograde to Taurus, and that I've talked about before. That's kind of a BFD. I always, by the way, can't tell you how excited I was to hear that reference on Still Processing last week. I actually had to be like, I'm sorry to ask, but you mentioned Uranus retrograde on Twitter. I never do this. I don't reach out to celebrities on Twitter. But I reached out to Jenna Wortham and I was like, I need the name of your person because I've been talking about Uranus retrograde to Taurus. And, who brought this to your attention? Who's your go-to? And she was like, Chani Nichols. And I
wait, she responded to you on Twitter? Yeah. God damn it. That's so cool.
And she tagged Chani Nichols in it, and now that I can't get away from her, she's amazing. I'm like, I kind of want to unfollow everyone else that I've been following on Instagram in that space now, because I'm like, you're everything I need, Chani Nichols. It's amazing. Chani Nichols. She's awesome. And everything about her makes me very, very happy. And we're also about to go into, with Uranus retrograde Taurus, which I'm not the only person talking about that anymore. Thank you, Jenna Wortham. We are now about to go, Mercury is about to go into retrograde again, which means more carnage and more destruction, which is why I said nothing when you mentioned that you're going to take vacation on a plane with a small child. And I'm like, you really want to do that during these two blackouts? Which really, when you got the double retrograde blackouts, that should be like a blackout on your calendar. Like, I'm going to hide in the basement until all this passes. But no, you went to California.
I blame the International Federation of Employee Benefit Plans for scheduling their convention this week, and my husband for insisting that we all had to go.
Ooh, me. But it looks like you had a really good time. You caught up with a whole bunch of friends.
Yes, a whole bunch of friends in San Francisco who I never get to see, and they're super cute kids. Also, my aunt down in San Diego, and my brother drove down to San Diego from LA.
Wow.
With his girlfriend, and we had a really, really nice time. It was very tough at times, but it was great, and I'm super glad we did it. And we went to the beach every day, which is unheard of for me.
I mean, I've been to LA twice, and both times I had the same thought coming out of it. Like, I don't see how people here are productive humans. I mean,
right?
I would be a beach bum. I would be like, no, sorry, I got to go.
Truly. And my aunt lives across the street from the most amazing beach on Coronado, which is an island just across from San Diego. And so it is just like between her apartment and the Pacific, there is one little street crossing with very few cars.
I love it.
So I was like, I understand beachfront property now. I get why people pay for it.
Yeah. Especially in an area that is not hip. But we do say I don't know if you saw the wildfires. It's a really big deal.
Yeah.
It's the second time this year. If you watch The Hills, New Beginnings, like I did, I mean, I felt for Brody Jenner and his slash partner, for lack of a better term, since we don't know if that marriage is legal, Caitlin. And them having to, luckily they lost nothing, but I'm like, I just feel really sad for the state going through wildfires again.
Yeah.
So if any of you are affected by those wildfires or impacted in any way, again, my heart just bleeds for you.
Yeah, me too. It is such a beautiful part of the country, and they go through that all the time. I was thinking about that a lot this weekend, especially in Northern California.
I was thinking about it too as I updated the blog, because I don't know if you haven't been to the coachesandlove.com blog in a while. That's where a lot of our training and coaching advice lives at the moment. So I spent a lot of time like upgrading the blog. If you've been to the www.coachesandlove.com/blog, I went knowing what was going to be happening at Marine Corps today. The weather was disastrous. I wanted to go out and pull out not just my course report, but also my What Would Coach MK Do advice piece on how to navigate a monsoon. Which, funny enough, how to navigate a monsoon, I wrote for the Houston Marathon in 2015. It was a really rainy year. It was also one of the years when my husband ran it. I wrote there's a companion piece that I wrote for Marine Corps for 2016, which was Out of Control Hot. Again, that was another year after my husband had run it and it had really good weather. So to get those two pieces back up, I wanted to make them look a little bit prettier on the blog. And I've done that. If you go and click on course reports, they've all been updated, original versions from the Fitness Protection Google group from years and years and years back. They're all there now with pretty little headers that I made myself in Canva. Thank you to our designer for making it idiot MK proof. I mean, there's idiot proof and then there's MK proof. That's just like a whole different level of like, I'm doing this with the wrong fingers. But I'm proud of myself. I think they look terrific. But in order to do that, I had to get through a whole bunch of posts about, to find the post about how to navigate heat, rainy day, extreme heat on race day. I also had to find about smoke and smog, because I've had runners who have, their disdain for the treadmill has been so high, or wildfires have gotten in the way of their training in different parts of the country at different times. And they were like, it's been weeks since I've been able to run outside. What do I do? I'm like, you stay inside, man, because you don't, the gains of being outside are lower than the risks of being outside right now. And I'm not saying don't live in California, but it just sucks that it's to be in such a beautiful place with air so polluted during certain times of the year where you can't go outside. It just seems almost cruel. So if you're training for California International, if you're anywhere near these wildfires, if you're breathing that air, I strongly recommend that you do not breathe that air. Stay indoors a couple of days or a week on the treadmill will not derail you. Lung damage will derail you for more than 2 or 3 days, a lot longer than that. So keep the priorities, keep them in order, stay safe, try to stay relatively healthy. Don't ask more of your lungs than you could. You're going to be fine running indoors for the short term. It's not less than, it's a whole lot better than creating lung damage that we're not going to be able to undo by race day. So I know that seems trite if you are worried about, your life and what else is going on. But in those moments when these are the very real things that you face, it's become that this type of trauma has become a mainstay in your life. I promise you, these are conversations I have with people. I have with clients who feel guilty for asking these questions. And they ask me these questions privately because they don't want to ask them publicly for fear of retribution. Like they need to be reminded that they have bigger problems right now. What they're seeking is sort of a little bit more than anything, they're seeking permission and validation. You're not being a weenie by going inside. Your workouts don't count less. They're not less than. And it's horrifying to think about that is where our society is at the moment, that we've pushed overachievers to the point where personal safety can be, or any steps that you take to stay healthy, sane, and safe could be seen as less than or wussy. It's just inane to me. And I'll always, if that's the only purpose I serve for you as your coach, I will serve that till the day I die, telling you that, yes, you made a good choice. If you decided to DNS the Marine Corps Marathon today, let me validate that choice too. I know I have at least 3 people who decided not to run, and they're part of their group that I call the Terrible Choice Crew, because they are not known for making good decisions. ever. And when I got the text from them this morning, I thank God I put those pieces up yesterday. One of them was like, thank you. I've never seen that you've written before. I didn't used to read every email that you sent, but now I guess I need to. Very apologetic about that. But she was like, that was the validation I needed. I would have felt bad. We spent all that money, time, and energy to get there. But you know what? This isn't the first time I've run this race. And do I really need to be out there? Because she just PR'd a marathon a couple weeks ago. I was like, what do you need to get today? Nothing. Are you going to get it in this? Nope. Then they stayed in bed and they cheered on the one person who did continue and decided to run it anyway. But, he's got the worst judgment of all of them. Bless his heart. So to that end, if you're one of the DNS, deciding not to start in the face of all the pressure that can exist, that's about as badass as it gets, right? I mean, there are people in Wildfires that feel guilty for running indoors. That same type of pressure is landing on people who spend all this money and all this time and energy to get there, show up in race day as a disaster. It takes more strength, I think, to stay indoors and take control of that and make a very informed decision saying, I don't need to do this. I'm not going to get what I want. I'm not going to do this, and tapping out than it does to lean in, say, yeah, this wasn't going well, and then quit and then feel like a quitter, because there's absolutely nothing in our society that's geared towards supporting, validating self choices that lead to preservation of the self. We're all about self-destruction. Go harder, be more extreme, do the thing that makes no sense to do, even if there's no reward and no payoff, like Big's Backyard Ultra. Can you believe, what's the reward for that? And free entry to the Barkley Marathons? OMG, a woman won it this year. A woman.
Yeah, that was such a cool story. Yeah.
When I think about all the things that happened this week and all the badassery from the Marine Corps Marathon to Shalane saying I'm done, to Big's Backyard Ultra, I just can't help but be energized at where we are in time right now with where the limits of human potential are being redefined in a really cool way that speaks to a wider group of people than ever before. Breaking 2 in the marathon, didn't speak to me. Why? Because and again, he's a terrific athlete by all accounts of people who know him. He's a wonderful guy. There are no suspicions around him, no question marks anywhere. He is good through and through. It's not about him. It's more like, okay, another guy did something that with corporate support that they are not giving to the women under the same banner. They gave a pair of shoes to a runner who did quite well with them, but now there are question marks all around her name too. And I feel that is the person I feel for this week, not the sacrificial lamb that had to go write that garbage report responding to Ernst & Young's nonsense treatment of women. Oh my God, that made me so angry. I don't feel bad for her. She didn't have to do that. Well, who I feel bad for is the woman who runs for Nike, and there are question marks around her finish time because of what she has to do to get a minimum amount of attention from a company that is putting all of their resources and their eggs into a basket that is not hers. That is the person I feel for. That person who has fewer options, that person who has fewer choices, that person who has less leverage. I will never feel bad for, the corporate person who, for one reason or another, decided to write that piece of garbage and sign her name to it. Not okay.
Yeah. And we will provide links to all of these articles that we're talking about. I'm keeping a list of the ones that we're referencing. MK had an amazing lineup of articles, and I love that essay that you wrote.
Thank you.
About the Big Backyard Ultra, which, oh my God.
Kelly Anderson.
Yay, get to do the Barkley Marathons now. Woohoo.
Right.
And about Shalane. Yeah. So we'll include links to all of those things. And we are, and I apologize to everyone who can hear Roz in the background. We are going to press on. And I want to start with the weekly wins from Runner Interrupted. We have a few to mention before we move on to Rebuild.
I just got to say before we go too much further, if there's any part of you that feels awkward about having not been accepted into the school of your choice or going to Harvard at all, let me tell you that even if you had gone to Harvard, you would still have a child who totally disrespects you and doesn't listen to anything you say
all the time
when it's least convenient.
Yes. Nothing can.
Would your life really be different if you got to Harvard? Probably not. You would just have a Harvard degree and be being yelled at by a child.
Yeah. Let me tell you how much she respects my Harvard degree. Oh my my God. So pressing on, it's kind of ebbing and flowing. We'll see how it goes. I feel bad. I feel bad for my husband, but I know he can do it. Okay. So in Runner Interrupted, we had a few people share their weekly wins with us. One of them is self-care. I went to a local coffee shop for an hour before work Friday and bought fancy coffee and wrote in my journal. It felt so good to reward myself this way after a tough week, making it a priority now a few times a month. That is awesome. I love that. I love fancy coffee. It never stops feeling like an indulgence to me, and like an indulgence that makes me feel cared for by myself. Second one, rocking my house.
I love how you advocate for that. I got to say, like, anytime Sarah goes anywhere, like, how are you doing? The answer has something to do with coffee. Whether or not she got coffee that morning that was worth drinking defines the day. Like, so that, like, Sarah feels you on every level possible. Runner Interrupted.
I really do. I believe in doing the little things that make you feel good. And I take it really personally when people nag millennials for spending too much money on coffee. You know what? It's worth it.
It's not like you have a 401k if you didn't buy coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Our financial problems go a lot deeper than that. Rocking my Halloween socks. This is the second one. Rocking my Halloween socks at work and my Coach MK costume.
Oh my God. Too. So one of the exercises in Runner Interrupted this week was, did you make your own Halloween costume? Because I know we got a lot of crafty bitches up in here. I'm like, did you make your own Halloween costume? If so, take a picture and put it in the comments in the Facebook group. So with Runner Interrupted, we have prompts coming via text, via Training Peaks, or activities to kind of keep the group together and tethered. And that was one of them. And this person had her costume was Coach MK. The day I gave a live stream with my hair up and was like, F it, y'all, here I am. And she put it on Instagram, and I got a good laugh out of that because I feel like she nailed it. She even nailed the inflection with the hi. Like,
she totally did
in my voice before until she did it.
Oh, it's so amazing. I loved that. That was a great costume. Please, we should have a Coach MK costume contest. I feel like there are some really good templates for that out there. That's a great idea. I like that idea.
But the little things you don't hear. So like the hi, what I'm doing is testing the microphone. I'm literally watching them. How hard can I push it? Where do I need to be? And I'm adjusting. So a lot of the things I do, I just don't think about how they come across anyway. So now I'm hyper aware of that. Like, okay, hi is... I sit back.
I always thought that was intentional. I always thought that was just like, hey, I'm hitting my vibe. I'm getting it out there. I'm getting in my mode. And the fact that you're testing the mic makes complete sense. That just makes it even better.
Yeah. I want to make sure I'm not in the red zone before I start talking. I need to be in the red zone when I'm yelling at it. And if I yell this way, it makes a difference. So.
Speaking of the red zone, the third and final weekly win that we're going to read is the person who volunteered at Marine Corps Marathon today. Ooh. One of our Runner Interrupted people went and volunteered. Ooh. And I just want to say that is awesome. They need you. They need it. Yeah. So I'm really happy. And that was something that we suggested gently this month in Training Peaks as maybe a thing that people could sort of consider if that sounded like a nice thing to do. And I'm so glad to hear that a couple of people have decided to do that. And I hope there was a good experience, and I hope you'll tell us about it.
Yeah, because you know what? If you volunteer at the New York City Marathon, you get a special volunteer jacket. That's kind of cool. They're nicer than the jackets you could buy at the expo. And now that I know this, because my husband got one after volunteering in 2015, I kind of want to go volunteer at the New York City Marathon just so I can get one of those jackets.
Yeah, me too. I didn't know that, but I'm going to look into that now. Yeah. All right. Going on. We are now in rebuild. We have 2 questions in rebuild tonight. The first one is, I am now running a lot of hills, in parentheses, fucking hills. And I know exactly what kind of hill you mean when you say that. Very steep up and downs that turn shorter runs into hill repeats every time. About 15 years ago, I had a coach give suggestions about hills, but I only remember the going up advice: lock cage, increase cadence. I vaguely remember something about sitting back when going down hills. Can you give some tips on physical technique? Thank you.
The physical technique, the cue that I like to give when it comes to running downhill, it needs to be a little awkward, like you're riding a tricycle. And I know, again, that's how do you, I've never ridden a tricycle. What is that like? When you're doing it, you're sitting a little bit lower than you normally would. You're pushing down on your heels like you're in a bike. Most of us, when we run uphill, we're going to be running on our at our tiptoes effectively, because at that, when the ground is slanted beneath you, your heel's not going to be striking the ground. When you then go downhill, only your heel will be striking the ground. And that's a braking mechanism. It's not the most efficient use of energy. It's why you shouldn't really speed up or try to like make time back when you're going downhill. You you sit into the hill, let gravity do the work and let it pull you all the way down. So that's the cue that I give. Pretend like you're riding a tricycle.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Sit up a little straighter. Don't lean back, but just like don't lean forward, because all you're going to be doing is creating more momentum that your feet are going to have to fight. That braking mechanism, you're doubling it whenever you lean forward. So it's like sit up straight, and it should feel awkward. Like, again, does this feel like, this is what I imagine riding a tricycle would feel like? And where that comes from, if you've ever watched the unicycler, sorry, not tricycle, unicycle. The unicycle, the Universal Unicycle Association meets once a year to go down the course in Snoqualmie, where the Jack and Jill's Downhill Marathon and Tunnel Light and Tunnel Vision are all held. Can you imagine? If you've been to this course, I've been.
God,
I mean, it's a massively steep downhill course. It's worth it, but I cannot imagine doing that ish on a unicycle. So yeah, not riding a tricycle. It's riding. Sorry, I meant to say riding a unicycle. I'm in my pajamas because it's snowing. We're supposed to get 8 more inches overnight, and I'm a little nervous, but we had to go pull all stuff in. So I'm up to my neck in tricycles and in the kitchen right now because there was a group going so hard they were getting covered. And anyway, it's my house is not that big, so 4 tricycles in the kitchen is a big deal. There you go. So
wow,
tricycles on the brain.
4 tricycles in any kitchen, I would think, have to be a big deal. I don't care if you're Gwyneth Paltrow. So, okay, we're going to, maybe we'll find an image to show people, to show you what we mean. Because it is helpful, like when you showed me in Atlanta what you were talking about, it's helpful to have a little bit of a physical cue. So we'll try to find an image to include. Second question in rebuild. So in a recent checkup, my OBGYN said that dual leg strength moves that put extra pressure on the abdomen can make pelvic floor issues worse. Sure. I don't remember if his source was a study or a book. He said old school sit-ups, Russian twists, squats, and planks were all problematic. That single leg staggered stance moves were better. My basic response was, what the hell? You got to be kidding me. What say the coaches?
Well, that's why I don't assign a lot of TVA stuff. Because remember, like all of our strength circuits were designed by a physical therapist for that reason, understanding who the crowd is now, and that demographics may change over time. But right now, the demographic is pretty well defined in fitness protection in all 3 of the groups. So to that end, we have you do single leg stances. We have you doing bridges. But there really isn't that much double leg work. And that's implicitly why. Because when you think about it, it's like I've heard it described as a balloon. So when you're pressing in the top part of your lungs and knitting your ribs together to engage all of these parts, it's a lot of downward pushing, which can be the opposite of what you need if you have any type of pelvic floor dysfunction. There's a coordination there that needs to be slowly recruited back. Which is another reason I just tell everyone, like, have you been pregnant ever? I don't really care how long. I don't care if you carried term. I don't care. I'm not here to judge you. So yeah, we want to develop the muscles very carefully. But if you don't have a functioning pelvic floor, nothing else is going to work because it's what keeps your internal organs from falling out through your bottom.
Okay. Do people in rebuild need to make any modifications to what we're having them do? I know we do have some planking next month. I mean, it's not just like minutes of regular planks on end, but do people need to make modifications?
I feel like what her PT is trying to communicate is that most standard training programs that are written by strength coaches, they're not bad. I'm not criticizing them in any way. They do tend to be all over body workouts. And a move like a Russian twist is fantastic. And to do one correctly, you got to use most of the muscles in your body. It's a lot of bang for your buck. That said, the population we're trying to serve and rebuild, we need to first activate the muscle, then engage the muscle, and then finally recruit the muscle before really developing the muscle. Where rebuild was designed by a physical therapist, not a strength trainer, for that reason. to make sure that the function is one of help and not only with maximizing the amount of strength we can get out of a single session. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, if your physical therapist who is seeing you and has looked at the routine and says, you do not need to do this, this, and this, you go with what they say.
Okay.
Especially if you have pelvic floor dysfunction. But if they have indicated that maybe this could be making pelvic floor dysfunction worse, I sincerely hope you are seeing a pelvic floor PT who can assist you with, well, what do I need to do and where do I start? They're the ones who need to be making the modifications, not me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sounds clear enough. Yeah. This was an OBGYN, so not this person's PT. And it's hard to tell from the context whether it was just like a more hypothetical in a casual conversation or like pertaining directly to the patient. But I guess hopefully.
Or to the program itself.
Or to the program. Right. Exactly. So if you have follow-up questions about this, let us know. And keep doing the strength as written unless you've been told not to. And if you have questions about that, always ask me in the daily strength videos, which I will be starting up again tomorrow. Yay. And thank you so much, Kavelin and Janet, for doing strength this week while I was in California. It was so helpful. And I really appreciate it.
But that's one of the ways that makes us a little bit different here at Fitness Protection. I went out of my way to make sure that what are you not getting elsewhere and make sure that you are going to get it. No questions asked. And that's why I started with physical therapists instead of a strength specialist. Eventually we may be recruiting those into the program, but for now, no, and probably never into the rebuild population. I think I'm still resentful of many years ago. If you remember the origin story of Fitness Protection, when a run coach told me that I needed to go hire a personal trainer, I would argue, was not what I needed at all then or now. I look back on that and I said not with anger or disdain towards that human. He was give me the best advice that he knew how to give. But it was also a little misdirected. So I wanted to think more appropriately about what a person would need and filling those needs as such. So there's nothing wrong with with personal trainers. I'm not knocking on anyone with an NAACSM certification whatsoever. They have a place, but to me, that place is not in rebuild. That, as you're coming back slowly to fitness, we need someone who is thinking about function, who's thinking about the same trajectory, making sure that rather than are we maximizing all the strength we could possibly get, rather are we recruiting all the muscles that need to come play if we really want to get back to where we want to be faster or more effectively? Are we getting something out of this no matter what? Are we first doing no harm? And the only population that has been trained to first do no harm, whether or not they actually do, this is the medical profession. So yay, this is why I go directly to a PT, and I hope you guys will as well. If ever you decide to work with a personal trainer too, great. I'm not saying don't. I'm saying you cannot ever afford, especially if you have ever been pregnant, to replace the medical advice of a good pelvic floor PT and a physical therapist, preferably one with the OCS certification, who's also licensed for dry needling and manual therapy. In your repertoire, you need them as well as the personal trainer, and that is why.
Yay. All right, that's it for Rebuild tonight. Yay. Maintain is next, and we do have some people who raced today who put on their super brave faces and did Marine Corps. We have Denny and we have Laura, and I think we have someone else too, right? One of your people.
Gerard ran. He did, but
yay, Gerard.
Yay, he was a member of the Terrible Choice crew who decided to get out there anyway. And Abby, Vanessa, and Rochelle did not run, and I support that decision wholeheartedly. If you DNS'd, all you have to do is go into our weekly newsletter, The Tether, which went out yesterday. I have links to the course reports. I have links to the New York City Marathon course, the race strategy and analysis. That went out in the newsletter as well. But it also has links to the articles reminding you how I feel about DNFing and DNSing. Again, it's one of the most difficult decisions a runner will ever make. And it is not less than in any way. And if anyone makes you feel bad, you come find me. I will tell you, I will validate that choice, and I will tell you I know how hard it was to do that because I've had to make that choice myself. And I am here for you, and I'm here for good decisions. Yeah, absolutely. And Laura and Denny, please let us know how it went. I know that you finished because I was tracking you. And I really hope that you'll come into the group and tell us. We're really proud of you. I just cannot imagine being out there and racing today. It must have been really, really hard. And Shara, because she is such a good best running friend, did the 10K so that she could be there in DC and support Laura. So I hope she'll tell us about the 10K at some point too. Yeah. And Tamara
did her 50K this weekend.
Oh my gosh, I know, right? Did you see how much vertical ascent was in that? This isn't.
I have not. See, I'm totally out of the loop. How much was it crazy? I haven't looked.
Almost 4,000 feet of vertical ascent and almost 4,000 of descent.
Oh my God.
Right?
Wow.
Tamara, that is a lot. Congratulations on doing it.
Congratulations on being so strong.
You can go do something really hard. I don't want to do that.
Tamara's amazing. Well, hopefully we'll get a report from her too. I would really like to hear a blow by blow of all of these races. You guys are amazing. So, we have 5 questions tonight in Maintain. The first one, I think you will have something to say about this. Can you talk a little bit about tips and tricks, what to look for when choosing a therapist?
Ooh, yes. Well, it depends on what kind of therapy you need. Right. And I think about what your biggest constraints are. So increasing numbers of therapists are opting out of the insurance billing systems. So that means that you're going to be out of pocket for anyone that's going to return your phone call and get you in to see them in a relatively expedient amount of time. I pay out of pocket for my therapist. She used to be in network and she is not now. I'm very fortunate that we can afford to do that. If you're having to go out of network, if you can pay out of pocket, you'll see someone a whole lot more quickly than if you're trying to get a referral in network. Because you'll find that most therapists are fully booked. They're not taking new clients and they will tell you so on their answering machine. So the first thing that I'll look for is availability, and then I have to look at my constraints. I have learned the hard way. When I back up and I think about my husband, if you had asked me what I was looking for in a partner, the list I had before I went through this process to come up with a brand new list that led me directly to Alex, it was bollocks. And I was looking for all the wrong things. And it kind of changed my decision-making frameworks and my evaluation frameworks for drawing another human into something that I think of as the MK team. So when you're thinking about your team, what you're looking for, what most of us are looking for is, and you'll know this right away in the first session, they have to listen. If you don't feel like you're being listened to, if they are trying to control the flow of conversation before they've gotten to know you, then they are judging you. And it is easy to, if you're familiar with that dynamic because you're used to being judged by people close to you or family members, you need to remember that's not what the doctor-patient relationship is for in therapy at all. It's supposed to be about support and validation. It should be like sitting next to me when I'm in my active listening mode, being like, that's awful. That is awful. I'm so sorry you had that experience. You don't deserve it. And here's what we're going to do the next time we recognize you walking into a situation like this. So when I think about the stages of better for me, and all this is really relevant to how you make the choice, you're not going to get better if you're still trying to prove fault to your therapist. Your therapist should be the one place where you're like, this happened and it's awful. And they're like, yes, that happened and that is awful. No questions asked. We are, as a society, very quick to want to find the answer, which is why I'm when you need to talk not to your friends, you need to know what to discuss with your therapist and what to discuss with your friends. Because your friends, if they're good friends, most of the time I like to believe that they mean well. They're just not therapists and they're not trained for these conversations. They don't know how necessarily to help you break the cycles that have either generational trauma that's been passed down to you that you've implicitly inherited from your childhood, or the really big ones where we repeat bad choices and put ourselves into situations that would potentially harm us. Friends aren't really good at that, and we're not receptive to hearing that from friends. We are much more receptive to hearing that from professionals. So that's the second thing. So beyond availability, the second thing I look for is, do they listen? If they listen, do they validate? Because it should take a while before they get to know you well enough that they can call you out on your BS when you're like, are you sure this is what we're talking about right now? And they shouldn't do it in a way that shuts the conversation down. It's never a challenging of your narrative that makes you feel small. It's a challenging of the narrative that makes you feel powerless. They should be talking to you in a way where they're like, well, you didn't have to stay in this situation. Or why did you choose to stay? Tell me why you chose to explain yourself instead of walking out of the room. That should be that, again, not exactly that, but not to make you defensive of the choices that you made, but to make you see that you think you only have one option. but to talk you through the other options that might be available to you in any given scenario and helping you find the power in those situations, again, where you feel powerless. That whole empowering process. It's why I don't, that's another reason, side tangent, the reason when people are like, empowerment sessions or empowerment coaches, I'm like, nope. Like that's, I don't trust anyone who wants to empower me, because it can be a very manipulative word, and a therapist really shouldn't use that word. They help you find the power within you. Depending on your level of trauma, you might need a specialist. I know if you're reliving, when I was pregnant with Violet, I bent over one night to empty out the lower level of the dishwasher, even though I already had a bad back by this point, but I needed a lot of help, assistance around the clock. I was feeling a lot of shame for that. And I was being shamed for that. People reminding me that like, I'm some sort of a pampered pet because, we can afford extra help. And I'm like, but I would rather not. Don't you think? Like, I run marathons in my spare time. At what point does this become a fucking vacation in your brain? So I was doing something I really should not have been doing, and I collapsed on top of it. And I'm lucky, like the door of the dishwasher came off. It scared the children, scared everybody. And that was the last time I did that. And it's been a long time. I'm still not comfortable unloading or loading the lower tray of the dishwasher because I remember what that felt like. That's trauma that I relive in my home. That's a very mild example because for the purposes of this podcast, I don't want to give like a really deep and painful example of the sort of situation where EMDR would be super duper helpful. EMDR is a type of retinal eye therapy where you deal with a traumatic event, which still has footprints in your life today, no matter how long ago it was. So if you had an incident like I did in college, you could still find yourself triggered by it. EMDR is a really good way to sort of break that cycle. So maybe not starting with that, a pathway. You also want a therapist who will tell you what's in their purview and what's out of their purview. If you know you need medication or are open to the idea of medication, or you're totally close to the idea of medication, you need to think about like what your deal breakers are. Like if I will not take medication under any circumstance, okay, well, the first time it's suggested to you, you need to be ready to pivot. Or if they're not respecting the boundaries that you kind of set, then that's a crappy therapist, to be perfectly honest. Because if you set boundaries that make it hard for them to do their job, they will tell you, I can't do my job with that boundary in place. You need to find another therapist. They're not going to really break the boundary down, if that makes sense. So finding someone who like is respectful of that and of the time that you're putting in. I don't necessarily say go to like specialists because you'd be missing a lot of really, really good people who just don't have a certification that can be like, I specialize in, EMDR is an actual thing. No one ought to be practicing EMDR who doesn't have certification. But just because they don't sell themselves on that doesn't mean that they can't speak to a particular type of trauma. You don't need to find someone who's a specialist in sexual assault. You don't need to find someone who's a specialist in PTSD. Specifically, if you just need a place to start, you need to cast a broader net, look for who's available and who's affordable, and then kind of from there specialize if you need to. We're in an era now we're finding out that starting with a specialist, you could be asking the wrong questions and hearing, I can't help you, which is not the same as you can't be helped. And that's the last thing you want to hear from a therapist.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh, I love that answer. That was really good for me too. Whew, hope that was helpful. Follow-up questions, let us know. I want to keep us moving because we have 4 more to go. And we're going to switch gears entirely to someone who is eyeing a 50K at the end of February. I live in the desert Southwest. What do you think about me using the marathon ramp plan to train for that? Should I just increase the distance of a few of the long runs and train on trails, of course?
I mean, that's entirely possible. A 50K is a little bit more of a thing. So I can, let me sit with that. Coach Sarah, if you don't mind making a note of it, let me sit with that for a bit and think about what extensions I would need to make. I have a feeling she's talking about Antelope Canyon, which is a terrific race, but it's also on sand. Huge ways of the course are on sand. So, and it's easy to be like road marathons, the deviation between them all, frankly, it's really low compared to ultras, which the deviation is really, really high. So we can be like, I don't know, I think Big Sur's really hilly. I'm like, not compared to Western States versus Mount Hood. Like the difference between Western States and Mount Hood, I mean, like if you can see the differences, I have a graphic somewhere from irunfar.com, and I can share it in the notes of the podcast or on the blog post that will accompany this podcast. But it has all of the major ultras overlaid over the Boston Marathon.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah.
And it's kind of glorious. So I would hesitate to be like, oh, this plan will get you ready for anything. Because if we're talking about Antelope Canyon, there are a few more skills I would want you to acquire before showing up, just to make sure you had a really good experience. And Antelope Canyon, by the way, is gorgeous. If you had Microsoft like a OS platform at any point, and you had those sand dune looking,
yes.
that's Antelope Canyon.
Oh, I don't want to run there.
Yeah. And it's hard to get to. You need a guide to take you into the territory. Like, you can't just show up and visit. So these are parts in the ultra that you would never otherwise get access to. So there are a lot of reasons to go do this race in general. And I want to support every single one of them and make sure that when you get there, it's a good experience, but it might need a little bit more than what we give you and maintain. But I will give it to you.
Okay, good to know. I will make a note. We will follow up on that. Next question. I have a tightness in my left glute upper hamstring. I think this is the location anyway. So I did a run in the pool instead of my regular Sunday workout. My Sunday is the plans Friday. So I think that means you do long runs on Monday. My question is this: what is your opinion on doing a pool run instead of on land or treadmill on a fairly regular basis for the Friday run? So like for one run a week.
I love it. As long as we don't have a race coming up where you're concerned about performance, I'm all for that. It only gets hairy if it's like, well, I'm in the 10-week marathon ramp and I really need to PR. I'll be like,
right.
We really need to be on the road. But if we're here for fitness, trying to keep a modicum of fitness maintained year round, then shoot, yeah, we can deviate from the plan in all kinds of ways. What we can't do in the middle of a performance ramp or a very specific cycle. So yeah, if there's nothing else, if there's no other goal that's conflicting, then shoot, yeah, I don't care if you do like 5 pool runs a week, go do whatever you need to do. Just understand that, like, if you're doing 5 runs a week in the pool, it's going to take some time to get your ankles used to bearing the weight of your body. Again, on the road, propelling yourself forward, again, with said ankles, locomotion is a really big deal. So it's easy to get carried away with the like, oh, this is good, so more of that will be better. But again, that gets us further and further and further away from the specificity required to really do well at something. So I'm not saying you're going to suck. You're still going to stay fit, but that's what we're here to do. Fit enough that we have options. And every day you're in the pool, you are, or every consecutive day that you're in the pool, you're sort of not removing the options, but narrowing the band of options. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And we assume if this issue is persisting and not going away on its own, we hope that you are seeing a PT about that as well.
And be open to the idea that it could be internal, because like a lot of the things that present in our gluteus maximus, either towards further towards the bone, that butt bone in the back in the middle, or kind of really, really deep, that we go, oh, that's piriformis. Sometimes that could be obstructor rectus. It could be the one of the rotator muscles on the inside. That is actually your pelvic floor, and it can absolutely present in your glutes. Okay. And I know this because I fixed mine last week.
Oh, good for you. Man, you had a big to-do list last week. I didn't even know about that one.
I did. There was a problem I thought it was my hamstring. It was totally my pelvic floor.
Oh, well, how about that? Pelvic floor really is everything. That is not the first time we've talked about it, even tonight.
I mean, it's all connected.
Yep.
I don't like thinking about my hoo-ha any more than anybody else does. Certainly don't like being in the conversation. But if it helps you make a more informed decision, I'm willing to do that because I love you that much. You're coached, you're loved.
Yeah. Really coached and loved. Really, 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 really. All right, 2 more questions.
Do it.
I am going to try my first EAT this week. I've never done it before. And I am wondering what's the best way to figure out average pace for each of the segments. Should I be hitting my lap button after every lap, or after 5 laps at each heart rate level? I actually think it's after the 5 laps.
After 5 laps. Sorry. Yes. I was thinking about each segment. It's after the 5 laps. Yes.
Right. At the end of the segment. So yes,
5 laps in lane 1 to be very, very clear. 5 laps.
Yeah. And that is absolutely the second question. Do I need to run in lane 1 of the track for it to be accurate? Yes. You do. I am not very familiar with how the track markings work. And one more question. Can I seriously hit 180? What if my heart rate doesn't go that high? Isn't it limited by age? I'm a total newbie to this stuff. Thanks.
I don't need you to get your heart rate up to 180. I don't need you to get your heart rate up. Like what we're trying to do is figure out where currently your limits lie, and tying that to a pace number to give you a realistic expectation of what's going to happen on race day. To give you the example of a person who comes to me and is like, I really want to run a 3:30 marathon. I say 3:30 because that's just easy math for me. That's 8-minute miles. All right. So like I do all my runs are at 8-minute miles. I've been practicing this pace a lot, but I can't really make it past the 20-mile mark in any marathon without bonking. I would be like, none of that tells me anything. I need to know how much effort your body thinks 8-minute miles are right now. I give them the EAT, and I can see when they're running 8-minute miles that they are using up all of their critical power in the first few minutes of their run, meaning like it's like you think of critical power as the matches that you have, like you just burnt 10 out of 15 in the first 5 miles of your race because you're running a marathon like it's a 10K. So it's not sustainable. And that's really one of the many reasons we did a whole podcast on the EAT. It's worth going back and downloading the paperwork and listening to it before you execute. What I really wanted people to get out of the EAT is a good idea of effort levels above easy, because we spend all this focus on slowing down. But then like, what does hard feel like? You don't need to practice as much hard as you think you do. To become really, really, really efficient at the marathon distance, we need to have 2 paces in mind. One is 10K tempo, too fast, as I like to call it, too fast for the marathon, and then too slow unless it's a really bad day, which is the easy effort. And where your race will be is somewhere in between. And the EAT just kind of gives you some ideas of how to reconcile, like if you're a really powerful person, meaning your muscles generate a lot of power when you go out there and you've been coasting on that for a while, then we can sort of start to tease that apart, your aerobic fitness from your ability to generate power, which is very limited, right? I don't care how strong you are, you will not be able to generate enough power to turn a 4-hour marathon into a 2:45 just by sheer will. It does, your bodies just don't work that way. But it is possible to power through, to turn like a 3:15 into like a 2:55 or something like that. What feels like a big reach by adding more power into your training cycle. It's one of the reasons like I push people to do strength, but not to go too far off the reservation there. That is what I think about and kind of why we do it. I don't need your heart rate to be at 180, but if you, let's say that you get to when your heart rate gets to 170, that's when you cry uncle and need to walk. It is a good thing to know that before race day, because if you show up and look down and see 165 in mile 10, you ain't halfway done yet, girl. You need to back off. Mm-hmm. It's not about a judgment or an assessment of where you are. It's about giving you the data you need to make the most informed, empowered decisions possible on race day. But people always see it as a test that they can fail. So,
yep. Really hope that you have a great experience and you feel super, super empowered afterwards. And we want to hear all about it and ask all the questions you want in the Facebook groups. We will include with this podcast links to our EAT content. We did a podcast about it a couple of months ago. We have some beautiful PDFs that Kara made. We'll make sure we get those to you. Yay. The final question and maintain, please, miss. And I know who is asking this question, so I know that she has a beautiful British accent, and so I can just feel her saying it. Please, miss, can we have a reminder of the desk series strength circuits, because we want more that we can do at the office, and our butts and legs are feeling it on the trails. Thank you as always.
That's amazing. I know who you're talking about too.
Yeah.
Yes, you can. You can have reminders. I will go back and dig those out. Sarah, make a note of that, and we'll try to pull them out. Yep. Kara's our wayfinder and designer is on vacation this week. So we might have to wait until she comes back out of respect for those would have been produced under a different brand. So we would need to reproduce them under our brand before sharing. I made a promise before I left and I intend to keep it. So out of respect to everyone involved, I will bring back the disc series once I can bring them back in a way that would allow me to sleep at night. So it might take a week or two to get those out, but we'll get them out.
Yay, that was so fun. And of course, don't forget that if you are hungry for lots of people coming together and doing cool, fun strength in funny places, we have got that coming for you too. We've been posting about it this week. And as soon as MK is recovered from the New York City Marathon, the Holiday Strength Challenge is on, and it's going to be so great. And I think it will remind you a lot of the desk series from last year in the spirit in which we all do it. So,
only way more ridiculous.
My butt is having like sense memories right now. So many squats. Oh my goodness. That is all we have in all three groups for questions. We did it.
There's one in the Facebook group.
Yes. Oh, that's right. Mm-hmm.
Suggested exercises for shin splints are appreciated. So the biggest thing when it comes, and I'll just answer this before we go. The biggest thing to think about with the shin splint is that the shin is a tiny muscle with not a lot of fascia around it. It was not intended to do much, kind of like the hamstring. If you have shin splints, then what's happening is we're overloading the shins. Either you're pushing your body harder or faster than it is ready to go at this point in time, or your glutes aren't firing. And it's not about glute strength. It's about glutes being recruited and coming to play when you need them to. It's a very, very common issue in runners. It's so if you Google glute strength in a runner, you will see all kinds of articles about it. Like there's at least one in Runner's World every single month. It's a thing, but trying to convince anyone that the issue is their glutes is really hard to do. Well, it's like, but my shin hurts, not my glutes. I'm like, but your glutes, your shins hurt because your glutes aren't your shins are doing the job that your glutes, a much bigger muscle set. The shins, teeny tiny muscle set, are doing the work that a much bigger muscle group is intended to do. So I would start with mobilizing them, using the first two moves in our foam rolling series, in which we really need to reproduce that too. I'd forgotten about it. Sarah's the production manager. She makes sure I don't forget all the things that come out of my mouth, because a whole lot does come out of my mouth a whole lot of the time. But we need to, the first two moves had to do with shin integrity, and the second one was called the bone saw. And those two moves on something really, really firm are going to be the best things you could possibly do for your shins if splints are happening. The next thing I would do a lot of squats, squatting down to get your booty really close to a chair and then back up again. And just kind of working on that to make sure your glutes are recruiting. If you have access to a BOSU ball, I can give you a series on that as well. Email info@fitnessprotection.com, and I'll give you a couple series and a couple ideas. And if these work well, I beg you go see a physical therapist who actually designed these series and look a little further into what those causes are. But in runners, those tend to be the two root causes of most shin dysfunction that I see. Glutes not working in concert, shins being overloaded, and shins needing serious mobilization. And the third is the easy one to fix, but I would go look at the glutes first, is that maybe it's time to replace your shoes. But it's most runners that I encounter don't need to be told to do that. They're a little excited to buy whatever's new, and that's okay too.
Raising my hand over here, very, very hardcore. I love
What? Nobody
new
tell
shoes.
you to buy new shoes? Oh my gosh.
No, they do not. Strava sends me little reminders.
Yeah.
It's time for new shoes. I'm like, oh, really? Oh gosh, what a tragedy. I guess I have to go to the shoe store now. Oh. Yay. Well, and Keith says, thank you. Good. I'm glad that was helpful, and you got your homework to do. If you have follow-up questions, join us and ask again. If anyone, I will be posting this in all the groups tomorrow. So if you have follow-up questions that you want to ask, go ahead, put them in the comments. If you tried to get my attention by tagging me at any point in this last week in the Facebook groups and I failed to see it, please don't take it personally. Re-up your question tomorrow and we'll make sure to get to it. I'm so happy to be back. Thank you. Yay.
I think you're going to be flying solo next week, right? Or if we're able to do it at all.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Next Sunday night, it is going to be just me, and I am going to have no one to keep me on track and keep me from rambling.
You can see how hard it is, man. I mean, it's not just the
it's
rambling.
It's really hard.
Well, it's hard to watch the clock and the camera at the same time.
Yes.
Read the questions. I mean, that's a lot, plus all the comments coming in a couple different places.
Totally.
So, yeah, it's hard. I'm better at this when you are here for sure. But I'm even better at it when you're like, okay, back. That was great. Come back here. Even if I resist you a little bit, just to have that is amazing.
Well, I'm glad to be back. I missed doing it last week, and God help me next week. The last time I did it by myself, I went for like 90 minutes, and I don't think I can afford to do that next weekend. So I will be crossing my fingers for good brevity vibes.
And if you have a question that's particularly complicated, I will be going on a social media blackout starting on Friday afternoon for the sake of self-preservation. It's my first marathon in 3 years. And I'm feeling a little pressure. And just for my own headspace, 3 years ago, I went to Philadelphia and I ran a really strong, really terrific marathon. And when I came back to my hotel room and I turned on my phone and I saw all the condolence texts from people, it was really people who meant well, but were operating on the assumption that I would be disappointed by my finish time because it didn't qualify me for Boston or, blow anyone's mind, despite the fact I just had a baby. So now I've spent 2 years in bed. I narrowly missed a cancer diagnosis this summer, man. And I'll just say it. If that had been cancer, I only had a 30% chance of lasting till Halloween. So I'm a little emotional this week, and I'm going to be a little emotional going into the marathon. And I I will do a live stream before the blackout starts. And y'all can follow me through the New York Marathon course if you want to, but I need to protect and preserve my headspace as much as possible. And kind of hide from people who want to say the right thing and without meaning to say the wrongest thing possible, I've spent the past like a week and a half in a creativity hole. Like, what is the wrongest thing a family member could say in this moment, in this situation? Okay, here's the strength move for that. Well, I've had a lot of fun thinking about it. I've also my brain has gone there too. Like, what are the helpful comments people will make that would actually tear me apart? And am I at a place where I can handle that gracefully right now? And the answer is no. So for the sake of everyone around me, I'm going to exercise that self-awareness and go on a social media blackout from Friday afternoon, probably until Monday morning. I have written it into Training Peaks for People in Runner Interrupted. I'm declaring November the 4th Donut Day.
Yes.
For reasons that will become very, very clear when everyone in all of the fitness protection programs sees the November layout, why the 4th is Donut Day or I'm just going to declare it as such. But my hope is I can have donuts from my favorite places, gluten-free donuts for me from my favorite place in New York City, and coffee, and we can have a little chat before I get on the plane. If the race goes badly, though, and if that's going to happen, I'll find some way to communicate it. Don't worry, Sarah will let everyone know. If not, again, I reserve the right to sort of go do whatever self-care I need to do. But just wanted to throw that out there. So I know it's, it's not y'all. It really and truly is me. When I say it's been a rough 2 years, people don't hear it because I have dry hair and pretty earrings right now. And I've lost all but 10 pounds of the baby weight or whatever. I might look normal. I might sound normal, but man, I don't feel it. We're getting there. But I don't feel it. It's been a very traumatic year, very dramatic, very traumatic. And for my first race in 3 years, I just need to go make sure that I have what I need, steel myself appropriately before I invite others into the conversation.
Yeah. Well, in doing that, you're setting a really good example for all of us. So thank you.
Thank you. I always feel guilty. So if you need me, or if you have a complicated question that needs me, let me know before the social media blackout starts.
And if something comes up during the social media blackout, please tag me explicitly in the Facebook groups. Make sure that I see it. If I don't see it right away, tag me again. Don't take it personally.
My husband's coming to town and he's going to have my phone. So we'll also give you his number, Sarah. And if you,
okay.
He's seen me through these past couple of days and he's like, all right, here's what we're going to do. And I'm like, okay, because he's not wrong. He knows me really well. So you might not be able to get me, but you'll be able to get to me through him. And I will absolutely make sure you two are connected before I go silent.
Yeah. Sounds good. All right, everybody, go take care of yourselves this week in that exact same way. Think about what you need and what you do not need and go get it.
I went skydiving. I went Rocky Mountain climbing. Whatever it is. I really hope you never live like you're dying, y'all. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. It made for a song and a good melody in Pitch Perfect too, but no.
Pitch Perfect too.
I'm pretty sure he has that. He's watching that with my oldest right now.
I love it. I love it so much.
It's like they're such theater geeks. It's great. All right, y'all, you are coached, you are loved. If you're coming to New York, let me know. We're going to do a shakeout run. Coach Sarah has planned it because I can't think that far ahead.
Friday midday. Let us know. We'll give you all the info.
Definitely. If you're in town, awesome. Because hey, Coach Sarah will be too. You're only in for the day on Friday, right?
I'm only in for the day on Friday, but I'm getting the first train down in the morning and the last train more or less at the end of the day. So I'll be there.
Thank you to all our subscribers who made the Acela possible for Coach Sarah.
Yes, thank you so much. I love the Acela. It's going to be a great day for me. Quiet train, no children. You have no idea what a gift that is. Thank you.
I know. I was like, are you sure you want to take the faster train or? I mean, we can, but if you want the 4 hour each way, I get that too. No judgment.
Yeah. It's okay. I'm still coming home after bedtime. So at that point.
Good stuff. Have a great week, everyone.
All right.
Coach, you are loved. Let's keep winning.